Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We're glad it didn't rain. Um, we are so happy to host really our first coffee. My name is Kara Coglanese, and I'm the interim superintendent here in the district. And I am proud and privileged to be here working with a fine group of staff and students in a community that truly does value and care about their students. And certainly this says a lot about you coming out here tonight as well, because certainly I know that you care about what is going on in your schools, what's going on in the community, and how we can work together to create future-ready students. Did you want to make some comments? I'm going to introduce you to Natalie real quickly.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first coffee with Dr. Kara. We are very happy to have her as well. We just wanted to take a moment to review with you before we get started. You should have received this at the door, but we do want to be cognizant of our rules of engagement for the evening. We want to remind you that there's one comment card per person. We also want to remind you that we won't accept any after the start of Dr. Kara's presentation. We'll be respectful and listen to each other. Per the Illinois School Code, the panel won't hear or discuss any complaints about individual staff, student personnel action, student disciplinary matters, or pending litigation. No applause, cheering, jeering, or speech that defames individuals or stymies or blocks the meeting's progress. Please try as much as possible not to talk while members of the panel are speaking. We must remember that our actions and words should always reflect what is best for children. And lastly, the answers to questions submitted in writing tonight that are unanswered due to the time constraint will be posted to our district website under frequently asked questions on Friday, September 14th. That will be next Friday after we've had an opportunity to have our second coffee on Monday of next week. So by Friday of next week, we'll have posted any and all of the questions that we've received answer to tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. So why are we here tonight? I think we're all here to find out, one, about what's all this talk about the facilities, what's going on with our buildings, how much is this going to cost? But more importantly, I want us to really focus on not only that piece, but really how are we going to create and train and educate our future students moving forward, because they both have to go together in order to make this work. So here's our PowerPoint here. When we talk about future ready, what exactly does that mean? That's a buzzword, but what exactly does that mean? Well, when we started thinking about how we're creating students that are going to be future ready, we first needed to take a look at our community. We have 4 separate communities here, 4 separate villages. They are all very different. They all need something different. So how are we going to unite our communities here to help our students be future ready? When our students leave here, they're going to go out in the world. They're going to work in for various employment. They're going to be perhaps going to different universities. They're leaving us to go out. Are they going to be ready? So these are some of the questions that we have to ask. How are we going to blend our communities so that we can prepare all of them? Now, the first step that we need to really focus on is how are we going to accomplish this? Now, we've talked about one strategy, and that's going to be thinking about renaming and rebranding our district. Rebranding our district, we have the name Crete Monee, and it has been a very significantly name for our district, but does it represent all 4 of our communities? In doing my research, it had historical significance when it was first formed in the late 1800s. But eventually over time, we've got 4 communities that are growing, and they need to be represented. So do we have a name that represents the 4? We have the U for United in 201, but are we united? And that's the question that we have to ask, especially looking at future ready, as well as our facility plans. Does this accomplish that? So as we think about perhaps renaming, rebranding our district, those are some things we want to consider. And that might be renaming all of our schools to be reflective of the future moving ahead. And that might be something we have our students do, not the adults, because this is their education. So really focusing on that future ready, uniting us for creating our students to be ready to go out there. So here's a picture right here. When we talk about future ready, these are the components that we are striving for to have our students be ready. The first one is to be creating STEAM labs. Now you've heard of STEM, science, technology, mathematics. Notice the A for arts. We don't want to forget the arts. We have a marvelous art program here. And arts is very much significant in helping our students be future ready. So what does a STEAM lab look like? STEAM labs they're taught robotics, coding, they're solving problems. They have 3D printers that students are working with. Students are working hands-on the whole time. They're solving problems. They're being engaged. So we are looking to have STEAM labs in each of our schools. Equity for all. We talk about equity, but are we really equitable? So what does equity look like? It's not equal, but equity is giving every student what they need. Cultural competency. You've heard of cultural awareness. We need to go beyond cultural awareness. We need to start thinking about what it means to be competent, because our students need to go out and engage with students from a variety of other cultures, other countries, and they need to know how to interact, how to be culturally sensitive to those that don't live in their same communities, their same streets, their same neighborhoods. And that requires special training. It requires teachers having students working in cooperative groupings, teaching them how to have restorative circles. So they're solving those problems. So they're out working with employment in the future. They know how to work with somebody in a team environment, that someone that doesn't think like them, look like them, and probably has a different background. Oftentimes you're going to see students that get jobs for employment. They're going to be working with people from other countries. Oftentimes we'll see here's my example, my husband works in finance, and many of the people that he works with on his team, many of them are from China, many of them from India, because they have the coding and the technology to get the jobs done at much, much higher levels. So certainly employees need to start learning, how are we going to be competent in working with those from other countries? And it starts when they're very young, as early as kindergarten, preschool, getting them to have those skills necessary so the time that they're leaving us, they're very culturally competent and they can interact in any employment environment. Technology. We have done a wonderful job here in the district. We've got the Chromebooks, we've got one-on-one moving, but we can continue to do more. Where we will be going next is introducing coding for our students as early as kindergarten. Now, we know about coding. Coding is the new international language. It's not Spanish or Mandarin. We all know that English is the international language for business. But actually coding is the national language that everybody comes to, and then they can speak through coding, because coding is involved in almost everything going to our future. We know that some of the jobs that our children will have not even been invented yet, because technology is moving so fast. Think about yourself. I tell my kids all the time, guess what? I grew up when a microwave just came out, and my mother was so excited that we got to cook dinner like that. And they said, microwave? You mean you had to cook on the stove? Yes, we did. And dinner was not ready in 20 minutes. Mom had to cook it out and defrost the meat. I mean, look how much technology has changed. The fact that we have the luxury of GPS, thank goodness for me, I'm lost all the time. You can ask my husband. I don't know what I would do without a GPS. You know, there are no maps anymore. It's GPS. The technology is moving so fast for us. And just think, what's it going to be like for our children when they get out there and have their children? What's the technology going to look like? It's amazing. Self-driving cars, who knows? Lots going on. Financial literacy. This is really key, especially with students of today. Financial literacy, as you remember when you were in school, maybe you got an economics class. Maybe you were taught how to do budgeting or writing a check. We're so far beyond that. Most students don't even see checks, right? They have their accounts. They see maybe mom or dad looking at their account. Oops, I'm overdrawn, or I got to move money here. They don't even know what that means. A lot of students, can't even read cursive now, right? For writing their signature on the checks. My students say, I can't read that. Things have changed so fast. So financial literacy in teaching our children is starting to think about, do you understand how to not only budget your money, but if you're going to be an entrepreneur and working from home? So many adults are working from home now. I see it in my neighborhood. Lots of people are working from home. They're telecommuting oftentimes, and they're working out of their home environments. But financial literacy is also looking at, how am I going to save for my retirement? We educators, TRS, we sure hope it's there in a few years, right? So how are we teaching our children? How do you save? Social Security may not be there. So how are we getting them to understand stock market, investments, investing into our communities? Nobody teaches you that, right? You usually learn on the fly, or you learn from a neighbor or a family member. We need to start teaching our students that in school. We need to start getting them aware of these kinds of things so that they can be financially solvent with the time they get older and the time that they have their own families, and be ready for that. Critical thinking, we are always forcing our children to think critically. What we are seeing in today's society is our children are so sheltered. A lot of it has to do with the types of environment we live in. Remember when we used to go out and your mother would call you at 6 o'clock and she'd ring the bell and you hear you came home? She didn't know where you were all day. Now, parents know exactly where their children are because they're having structured play. We call them, the helicopter parents, making sure that they know where their children are at all times because of the safety risks, right? So many of our students have not learned to take risks and think critically because so much has been sheltering and making sure that they're safe and that we make decisions for them. But we've got to start teaching our children to start thinking critically. How do you read what's on the internet and not believe everything you read, right? Even Wikipedia. We don't look at Wikipedia now. You check your sources. So how are we thinking critically about the things that we hear, we see, and how do we teach our children how to make decisions? So those are some things that we need to start embedding within our curriculum, within our units of study. And that, again, is helping them to become future ready. And the last one is taking a look at global and local connections. I can't tell you enough how I believe in this. Our society has become very much global. We talk about people that live across the ocean. We have access to them on the internet, FaceTime, all sorts of apps that are out there. And we need to start connecting with them. This world is too small. And we need to make sure that our students are comfortable engaging in conversations with children from other countries, understanding different governments and societies and economics, and make it smaller. We also need to have them making more connections locally. We want to make sure that our students here want to come back and live in our communities. We don't want them leaving. Some do, but we want to have our students coming back and reinvesting in our communities, because I've heard this from so many of you. What's going to happen if everyone's leaving our district and no one comes? What happens to your property value? Nobody wants to live here. So we want to start connecting our students with the business owners, our local officials, our libraries, all sorts of community resources to help them embed them in the community and having them work together as a team. So coming up with service learning projects, problem-based learning projects to all connect students both globally as well as locally is really important for sustaining and creating future ready. Now, having said that, we can talk a little bit more about what this is going to look like in moving forward and how this facilities plan plays into this. Well, as we talked about our facilities plan, we really wanted to focus on equity. You're hearing so much now, not only in the schools, but out there in the media about what it means to be equitable. You know right now about the state funding models. They've changed funding for schools. It's all about equity-based funding. Some schools get more than others, and we're going to start seeing that realized very shortly in our own budgets. But it's not just looking at equality, but what is equitable. And this is such a great picture to take a look at the students right there. You can see on the left, everyone got the same thing, right? Does that look fair? Well, not to the little guy on the right. I love him. He's not engaged, is he? He can't see over the fence. Nobody cares about him. But look on the one on the right. Their hands are up, they're engaged, they're participating. But you notice the one child doesn't have the step, but the others were given it. He gave it his to the little guy on the right so that he can be engaged and enjoy the game as well. And that is just a picture to really symbolize what we're talking about by having equity for our students, is giving them what they need. Some get something different, but at the end of the day, everyone's watching that game. I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution of our facility plan here. For those that have been around long enough, you've probably been and seen facilities plans come and go. We have quite a history in our district of changing building names, moving kids around. And what does this mean? So I'm going to take us back just to 2013 to tell you a little bit about, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, where we've been. In 2013, we had former Superintendent John Rogers. He was charged by the Board of Education at the time to come up with a facilities plan committee. They recognized that our facilities needed some help. We have some very old facilities here. So they met with the community, they started getting feedback, and I don't know if there was anybody here at that time that participated in any of those, no? They started coming up with that plan. By 2014, they presented the master plan called the Facility Management Plan 5+5 to the board on the 21st, and it got approved. And that was the same year that Superintendent Nathaniel Cunningham came on board as well. Shortly after, in 2015, we had some other changes out there. We had No Child Left Behind, then got changed at the time to ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, which really focused on equity. So here's where we're beginning to see the equity coming in, trying to get districts to start focusing on doing what's right for all the children and not just some. At that time, Superintendent Cunningham announced that the district would be selling bonds, which basically means going out and getting loans for money. Moving along in 16 and 17, we had some changing with some district level administration, new superintendent, new business manager coming in. And here's where we're at 2018, the Future Ready Plan, 2022 plan is beginning to be realized here along with the facility plan at that time. The facility report that was done in 2013, this was how it was graded by the community. I'll go through these quickly. Our facilities had been aging at some time, and you'll see some of the grades weren't so great. And as you can see, the 6th grade center, you know, it's now closed. And the renovations are just way too great right now to do much with that. So that's on target for being demolished. We have some other centers there. Crete Elementary did receive an F on the report card in Balmoral. And this was in 2013. So our buildings have continued to age out during this time. So clearly we know we do need to do some things with our facilities. They've been waiting for us for a long time. So here is, again, the evolution of the plans and where we've been and where we're going. Off to the left, now every year, the Regional Office of Education goes out and visits various districts, and their job is to make sure that it's safe, and so that they call it a safe life safety plan. So the regional office goes out there with their architects. They go through every building. They look at doorways. They look at your lighting and your fixtures and your plumbing and so forth. So they do that every 10 years. So they do an audit. And what they will do is they will write up a building to say, these are the things that need to be fixed. And you are required to find the money and go out there and fix them. Well, with aging buildings, you can imagine the list becomes longer and longer and longer and more expensive. And that is exactly what's happened here in our district. Our list began becoming very long. And so that is, again, where this facility management plan came in 2013-14 to say, we've got to do something. We've got to probably have a mix of new construction. We need to renovate, and we've got to fix those life safety. Now, with the ROE at the time, they said, you can hold off on fixing that, but you've got to then either rebuild or remodel to take care of some of these plans. So that's what the 2013-14 plan did. And that was approved by the board at that point in time. And you can see what the plan basically looked like. It was closing Balmoral and Crete. It was a 6th grade addition at the middle school. And do you see the little red check? That's what got done. Just the one item. Demolishing the 6th grade center, CSK improvements, Talala improvements, and so forth, just all the way down the road. So that was what was budgeted. They went out and borrowed, we're going to borrow money for it and to get it done. But a lot of things came to pass, and the only thing that got done at that point was the 6th grade addition at the middle school. So again, where do we find out? We're moving on. It's 2018. We've got to do something with our facilities. It's been very hot this week, as you know, and our students have been, and our staff have been great with this, but we can't continue to have our students working in unair-conditioned facilities. So we've really got to move forward with this. So the Future Ready plan of 2022, what does this look like? So here's the next stage of this. Now, why this looks a little bit different than the one before was this idea with this equity. Now, with ESSA coming in, it starts to change how we look at not only how we're educating children, but how what kind of buildings are we putting in, and how are resources distributed from student to student. And is every child getting the same access, just like that little picture we showed you? So the Future Ready is about equity and access, number one. And that's what's a little bit different than the plan before. So why does this one look different? So this one just has new construction and renovation. The life safety will have already been taken care of with the new, because they're newer buildings, right? So then we're really basically looking at new construction and renovation. So again, looking at a new grade center construction. And that's what we're calling grade centers. So we're looking at collapsing some of our elementary buildings and consolidating them into one center. So one would be a K2 center, and the other one would be building on as a 3-5 center. Because we've got our middle school and we've already got our high school. So it's our K5 areas that we're really having to focus on. So again, demolishing the 6th grade center, we already know that got an F, way too much to renovate. Merge all the elementary buildings. We're looking at some expansion with our middle school. We ran out of space already with students moving on. Putting in STEAM labs, small learning communities within these grade centers. And again, equalizing our class sizes. Across the district right now, they are not equal. I have some classrooms that have higher numbers than others, and that's just because that's where the boundaries fit for that particular school. So again, not equitable across it. So when we talk about what will these buildings look like, you know? So when we talk about being future ready, what is out there? And again, I think the number one concern is well, how much is this going to cost, right? You know, you show me these great pictures, but are we going to get the bang for our buck in doing this in the long run? So let me just show you a little bit about future ready, and then later on we'll talk a little bit about some of the finance pieces. So this is an example of a future ready library. Future Ready is all about having the environment ready for students. It's becoming untraditional. It's taking a look at a lot of natural light because students learn better with natural light. I know I do. I don't want to be in an office with no windows. It's not very fun. Days are long. I don't think as well. Same with our students. If we are really getting them to focus on working with getting them ready for the park testing and getting them ready, we've got to start doing things differently. So again, natural lighting, notice the flexible seating. Students today aren't sitting in the desks. It's about flexible grouping. Even if you go into many office buildings, what do you see? The stand-up desks, the special chairs where build your core. I mean, we're doing this for adults already, right? So we've got to start thinking about how our kids are doing it. You see them at home. They're not just sitting on the couch. They're moving all around. They're on their cell phones. They're, looking at different apps. It looks different. Again, flexible seating in the classroom. Notice there's no books. So a lot of this is moving towards online applications, flexible grouping, chairs, and so forth. Again, classroom here, flexible grouping. Notice the whiteboard in the back, very untraditional. Students need to be able to move around freely, not stuck in a desk all day because they get fidgety, and keep them moving and engaged. This is an example of a STEAM lab. Off to the left, you'll start seeing some examples of, there's a 3D printer in the upper left-hand corner. You can see what that looks like, where students are then designing product. There's another open library. So that is a view for that. So as we're thinking about what it means to prepare future ready, we've got to see what we can do to start looking at investing in our students, our facilities, because as we look at even within the communities, how are we going to attract people to our community? We need to have facilities that are enticing and are producing children that are going out and are truly ready and future ready, because people start talking about where the good districts are and where the good schools are. And so we've got to start thinking about how we're going to do things differently than before and how we're going to get ahead of the curve instead of running from behind the curve. So anyway, these were just some of our thoughts on future ready and how our facilities are going to be part of that in order to get us where we need to go. Okay.
All right, we're going to start the Q&A portion of the evening. The Q&A will go from 6:15 until 6:45, and I'll make one last request for any comment cards before we proceed. Anyone have a comment card that they'd like us to read before we begin? All right. Are you bringing that something to? Okay, no. All right, so we're going to begin. We're going to read the cards that are in the box before us, and let me make sure, ladies, no more in the box, right? Okay. All right. So we've got all that are here tonight. Okay. First question. There's no name on it, and it's from a resident of University Park. It says, "Are renovations and life safety repairs the same thing?" Mr. Surma, I think.
Yeah, let me tell you, I get the first one, huh?
Yeah.
And that. Life safety and renovations are not the same thing in that. So let me try and explain the differences. Dr. Kara talked about life safety issues are those things that take a facility when the Regional Office of Education Architect come in every 10 years, they look and see what things may not be up to code at that time because code changes throughout the years, electrical codes, safety codes, all of that. So they go through that process and see that. There's actually a health life safety manual that the Illinois State Board of Education pulls out or puts out. And so they go along those guidelines. So those are really basic things that they look at in order to improve the safety of the facility. The second part of that then is renovations. Those are really completely separate. So I'll give you an example. Let's take air conditioning. Air conditioning is not a life safety issue. It's a renovation issue. So we would not be mandated to put that in, but from an educational standpoint, from a learning center standpoint, I believe it's important to have that. So that is separate. We have put together, in fact, in 2013, there was a list of, as part of this plan, a list of life safety issues and then enhancements or renovations to each of the facilities. And they're broken out. And I'll kind of give you an example of some of the really basic things that are put in the renovations. Changing out light switches in some of our facilities that may be past their life cycle. electrical receptacles, air conditioning, those type of things. So the cost of those is really millions of dollars. When you take a look at that, we have all that. We'll publish all of that for everyone so they can, again, see that, but it was in the 2013 study.
Okay. And for the panel, anyone who has anything to add to any of these questions, please feel free. Let's keep going with that line of questioning, Mr. Surma. The next question is from a resident of Crete, and the question is, what's the total cost of life safety repairs?
And I'm looking at my notes here, so I have that and that. Coming out of the 2013 Life Safety Survey, that cost in 2013 was a hair over $13 million. So that's in 2013 cost. We haven't put an escalation on that at all. So I don't know what the current cost would be on that. However, what I will say is some of that money, there's about $3 million of that is a sixth grade center, if you wanted to pull that out of there. So the life safety is about $10 million in 2013 dollars. Now, on the other side, as I talked about these enhancements or renovations and repairs that the architects would recommend and the committee recommended, that total was a total of $77 million to renovate all the buildings. Now, again, I'm going to preface this by saying 38 million of that was the sixth grade center. So let's take those two numbers out. So in life safety in our elementary schools, it would be about approximately $10 million. The enhancements, the air conditionings, electrical systems, plumbing systems, all of that is an additional $36 million, totaling $45 million.
All right, our next question says, can you please tell me what grade centers are? What grade centers are? Laura?
I'll take that one. Actually, when you think about grade centers, it pretty much is what the name says. It's a school that houses a specific grade center. So, for example, let's take the building we're in right now. This is a high school. The high school has 4 grades in the grade center. So we have a grade center for 9 through 12. Our middle school is a grade center. It houses grades 6, 7, and 8. Again, that's a grade center. As we're talking about grade centers for the K-5 students, we're talking about 2. We're talking about a K-2 or a pre-K-2 grade center that would house those grades, and then a separate grade center that would house all of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders in one facility. So again, we're looking at about 3 to 4 years of grades housed in a building. So that's basically what a grade center is.
Danley, I'm just going to add something on this too, because I think one of the concerns that comes out is, okay, we have a grade center, but it's a large one. And our students are concerned about, or, our kids would be concerned about maybe getting lost in this facility. And again, through the design process that we have kind of looked at, we're looking at trying, and Laura, you might want to address this, we're looking at making some schools within the school that would shrink that down so that grades are almost in what's called pods. And it becomes a smaller atmosphere for the student, and they become more acclimated to that.
I think in some of the pictures, as you're looking at a future-ready environment, one of the things, and we've already had, back in 2013, I was here in 2013, I looked at architectural plans that we were developing. We started to develop architectural plans back in 2015 for a new K-5 school, and we were looking at how do you place classrooms within a new facility. And, we all went to school with what the traditional design, which they call the double-loaded corridor, which means that you have a hallway, and on each side of the hallway, you have classrooms. Well, under the new design, what you're doing is you're putting classrooms in clusters, and outside of those classrooms, you have some common space where students can work in the classroom and work outside of the classroom. So again, it's a different look. And as we're working with architects and talking about the design, what we want to do is we want to take these clusters of classrooms and create a more like a school within a school design. So if I'm in a large school, I may not be with everybody all the time. I may be in a community or a neighborhood so that I have relationships with adults. Adults know my name. They understand my learning needs. so that I feel safe and secure. So it's building community within a larger facility, and that's really important because we know that that's how when students connect with their schools and with their adults and teachers, and the students that they work with, that their learning improves. So we're very aware of that, and we're doing everything we can in our planning to make sure that we can create those environments.
If I can add one more, just to piggyback off of what Ms. Hirsch said, when you are building those small communities, they become a unit, a family, and then that carries on as they go on to the next grade center. So we're bringing them together at a much earlier age and developing that family unit that they will continue to strive and grow as they grow together throughout their academic years.
All right, the next question says, how can this plan be implemented without a community vote? And that is from Jory Turner from University Park.
I'm assuming that has to do with the cost factor. So the district has the ability to, Dr. Kara talked about this, about selling bonds. When I talk about selling bonds, we're really talking about going out and taking a mortgage out and getting money to do that, to fund it. That's really what that means. It's just school finance talk. The district does have ability to sell bonds in the amount of both principal and interest up to $6.4 million per year, and that as it extends out. So what that means basically is that our principal and interest payment for those bonds, it's called debt service extension base bonds, cannot go more than $6.4 million. We have the ability to do that. The reason we have that ability to do that, the board or the district has that ability, was when tax caps were put into play. And what I mean by tax caps is your taxes can only go up either 5% or the consumer price index, whatever it is, less than that. So when that was put into effect, there was also a clause in the law that said whatever debt you had, the district had at that time, can be used as debt service extension base, meaning that you can go out and sell bonds to that amount per year, and forever, actually, if you could do that. Well, then what happened at Crete Monee here in 1999, actually, they went to referendum to increase that amount up to 6.4 million. Because at the time when tax caps went into effect, the limit was only 2.3, but then the voters increased it to 6.4. So the voters actually have given the district the authority to do that. That happened in 1999. Now, I know a lot of us may not have been here in 1999, but you were, and so that was done. So the district does have that ability to do that without having to go to referendum and that. And again, from a financing standpoint with school districts, is financing can only go out 20 years. Like a regular mortgage, a lot of times goes out 30 years. With school finance, you can only go out 20 years and that. So in essence, we could restructure the debt that we have right now, hit that 6.4 and do the financing for this plan and be able to pay for it that way without having to go to vote.
Okay. This is from Jennifer Santa Maria, I believe it says, a resident of Crete, who asks, will the classroom size be smaller for more one-on-one learning? Will classroom size be smaller for more one-on-one learning? Ms. Hirsch?
Sure. I think one of the things that Dr. Coglanese mentioned in the presentation was when we put all the students from a grade level in a building, one of the advantages to that is that we're able to even out the class sizes. So I'm not talking about reducing class sizes, but we are able to even it out. So for example, at Talala Elementary, we have 2 sections at every grade level. If we get, say, 34 students that come in at a particular grade, we would have 2 classes of 17. Whereas at another school, we may have 50 students at a grade level, and that would be 2 sections of 25. Well, when they're all together, you have the ability to create classes that are even. So one of the things that we would do in this plan is to is to make sure that we are redistributing students so that all of the class sizes are equalized. As far as reducing them, we are having conversations about that because we do know that especially in the primary grades, having smaller class sizes is very important. So we're actually in the planning of this and talking about numbers of classrooms that we need. We're looking at various class sizes from anywhere in the primaries, looking down as low as say 18 to 20 students. And we're trying to look up as we move up the grade levels to keeping it under 30, which right now I think you probably know we've had situations in past years where in our 4th and 5th grade classrooms we've had 30 or 32 students. And what we would like to do is to keep that under 30, probably closer to 28 as a cap. So we are looking at that. But of course, every time you reduce class size, you add a classroom. So we have to balance that with the cost of the facility.
And if I can also add, and Laura, if you would help me with this, when you have the smaller class sizes, you are able to differentiate instruction a lot more.
Well, I think, yes, I think you are. You have fewer, you know your students better, you have fewer students, and you're also able to manage more groups. When you get a large group of students in a classroom and you're supposed to do guided reading groups, and your groups are 7, 8, 9 students, you're not being as effective in giving students the attention that they need. So we would be able to create smaller groups within the classroom.
The next question, will this take away any jobs or make more jobs?
Okay, I'll do that one too. Everyone's looking at me. We're studying that right now, to be real honest with you. We don't know that yet. We don't think so. We think it's going to repurpose some individuals into some areas and that. You know, and again, I'll just kind of give you an example. Instructional technology. And that we feel, Laura and I have had this, all of us have really had this discussion about, we think there needs to be someone that assists our teacher in using technology in the classroom, how to use it, you know, really in that. So we don't have anyone like that. So that may be someone that we need to repurpose into a position that may already be on our staff and that. So what we need to do, and wherever we're at right now, is in a design process. And looking at the facility and kind of designing it right now. As Laura had said, she talked about class sizes. So we're doing that. We've had some interaction with the architect. Once that is determined and decided, and that probably will be, I'm just throwing out some times here, probably sometime in November. At that point, we'll begin now looking at staffing, because then we'll have the actual classrooms. We'll know how many classrooms there are and all that. And then we can start playing this chess game of moving things around and that. Our goal that we had talked about was to try and have a plan put together that we could that we know going forward by the beginning of next school year. So that would give a year then for teachers to interact and know who's going to be on their team, staff to interact and know what's going on as we begin moving forward and moving into grade centers.
All right. That is it for our questions. We really appreciate you all for being here tonight. We certainly wish that there were more souls in the chairs because we certainly do want all of the input of our entire community. We understand that this is a community effort. It is for all of us and all of our children. We're going to keep on talking about this. We want to have an open dialogue with our communities. We want you to be free to share with us. We appreciate you taking the time, but we don't want you to be done yet. We like for you to take a moment and take our very quick 5-question survey right now. So if you can pull out your smartphones and go to, and if you don't have a smartphone, we thought of that too. We've got the written version, so we can bring that to you. If you lift a hand, we can distribute these to you as well. We are.
And while you're doing these surveys, we are going to be here for you to ask individual questions. You can come up. We've got some time. We want to interact with you and answer your questions, so feel free to do so.
Test, test.
I think the question that was brought up was some of the concerns about buildings such as the CSK and how hot it is for students to learn, and it does hamper their learning. And I didn't get your name, but Nidra had said that she was in support of the plan because it provides equitable learning environments for all of our children, and ultimately that, I think, is what we're all interested in. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Frederick Walls. I have a question that wasn't a part of this here, but it deals with homeschooling parents. We want to know if we homeschool, can our child participate in gym? You know, because we do pay the taxes, and we're going to have to pay for any facilities that you use. So we want to know, would homeschooling parents' children be able to participate in academics that our taxes are paying for? Thanks.
So I can answer that question for you, and there is a policy that I'll be happy to forward to you, but you would have to be enrolled part-time with the district, and you would have to request that in writing prior to the start of the school year.
And I apologize. I should have said that, Mr. Walls. I wasn't ignoring your question. I was going to forward it personally because it had to do with your child personally. And per our rules of engagement, we didn't want to engage about your own child's issue. So I was going to pass that along, but I should have said that. So my apologies. Sure.
Thank you for this opportunity. I didn't know we were going to have this, but another question that I have is in terms of Coretta Scott King and the demolition of the school. And it's going to leave a huge space in University Park. And if there are any plans to utilize that humongous space that will then be empty when the school is demolished. It just feels like the other communities are getting these new spaces, and it's making people look at these communities for when they move in and their children are going to be attending these schools, yet it feels like University Park is getting slighted in this plan. And I feel like I would be a little bit more on board with the plan if I knew that what's in front of my home is not just going to be some empty space with a parking lot sitting there.
We're going to have Dr. Kara and then you, Dr. Clark.
I think the beauty behind going out there and talking with all of our stakeholders, we are hearing that specifically. The beauty behind having a process work where we're hearing from the various stakeholders about what is important to them, it helps us determine, where can we revisit the plan to maybe address that issue. Because what we want to do is we want to first take a look at, number one, how are we going to get our kids future ready? And is this facility going to help us get there? But more importantly, we also want to consider our community partners out there. We value our 4 communities and what they have to say, and we do not want to have the community feel slighted. So part of the value of this is people are giving us ideas and suggestions for what to do with the various properties. And so those are being considered, and at the end of the day, when we go to take all this data back to our board, they're going to take a look at these to say, all right, these are some of the major concerns here. Let's look at our plan. Is there anything that we want to tweak to address some of these concerns and still have a win-win situation for everybody? So it is highly being looked at. Anyone want to add on to that?
And I was just going to add, that is why it is very important that we do these surveys, because in the survey questions, there's going to be boxes where you can actually ask a question or leave a comment to assist us. And I think your feedback will be very important to our board as well, because we want to hear from everyone. And that is the goal here, to make sure that that unity that Dr. Cochranese talked about is being represented here.
Thank you for your question.
Dr. Kara, I'm just going to add one thing to that too, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the timeline for that is probably going to be sometime in October, where we will really have our plan. We're going to recommend maybe to the board, and the board will discuss, how we're going to tweak that. So I think we're looking probably at sometime in October to have that, and then to share that with the public then too, as we get that feedback.
You have a question there, Ken?
Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
Been a longtime resident of the Will County section of Park Forest since 1965. My question is this: the total cost of this plan is something in the neighborhood of $84 million. How is this going to affect the taxpayers of this district?
Those are great questions, and Mr. Surma, I'm going to.
Sure, I'll answer that for you. So let me first talk about the tax bill. So if you've looked at your tax bill, there's a lot of taxing bodies on there. We're one of them. We're actually the largest. The school district is the largest as an all. But if you look at the amount that you pay, part of that, I don't know exact percentages, but part of it is bond and interest payment, and part of it is operational cost that is in that full amount. What I will tell you on the financing side of it, our goal, and I've worked this out with our financial advisor, is that the bond and interest portion of your payment will not go up. However, it will be extended out. Okay? So what I mean by that is this. Right now, the district is set to have their debt roll off the books, meaning we would have really almost zero debt in about 6 years. So that means that the bond and interest portion of that payment would go down. However, for this plan, we would need to extend the debt out and take out another mortgage, actually, is what we need to do. So it would be extended out, but we do not want to raise that portion of the tax bill and that. The other part of the tax bill is the operational costs, and that's where I talked about tax caps. It can only go up either 5% or CPI, whichever is less. This past year, CPI was 2.1%, so that's the most we can really raise taxes is 2.1%, but only on the operational side. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but it will mean that we need to extend that debt out farther also. Okay, that's fine, not a problem.
Any other questions in the interim as we wait?
Question for you. You talk about want to revamp the whole building, tear buildings down, add new ones. What are you going to do about the busing situation? You're going to be having kids from Monee, you're going to have kids from Talala that have to be bused farther. Do you have have that put in your expense also?
Dr. Clark?
Thank you for the question. We are starting to look at that as well. So one of the things that we believe will take place, and there's still more study that is out there that we're doing, is that it's actually going to be a lot less for us because we won't have the multiple tiers. Right now we're operating on 3 tiers. We'll be going down to 2 tiers. But we will be looking at how many buses we may end up increasing and what that would do to us in terms of dollars. So we're still working that out with our provider at this time.
All really good questions. You're a really nice crowd. Thank you.
Dave Wallace from Crete. Just have a comment. It's not really a question, but in listening to everything, a lot of things make sense. The one thing that makes the most sense to every tax-paying body and entity in the entire district is the academic level. And if this moves forward and the academic achievement rises, everyone wins. We should not, I encourage everyone not to take their eye off of that end game. It's the students and the academic achievement. That's where the value is at.
Thank you for that.
Any more? Well, we are still,
With your STEAM labs and classrooms, how will you keep technology updated?
Well, we've been updating technology over the last few years, and I think it's a combination of things. One is obviously knowing what the latest technology is that's out there. We do spend time doing research, going to conferences, and staying abreast so that we know. The other thing is looking at grants. There are a lot of technology grants out there that can support this. The other thing that we do is we also utilize a lot of our federal grant dollars to support our technology implementation. So that's right now our one-to-one that we've been doing. We funded it through a combination of things. One was a loan through the Illinois State Board of Education. That was a very low-cost loan that we took out, I believe it was 2 years ago for the high school. So the state does this revolving loan, which is a great asset. And then the other way that we did it was through our federal dollars that we get through our Title I grant. So we're looking at a lot of sources to, help support any updates that we need to do as we move forward. One of the challenges we always have is that technology is changing at such a rapid pace that you just get through doing one implementation and now the next thing is out there and everybody's, figuring out how to move that in that direction. But one of the things we're looking at is, what are in terms of the facility, what can we put in there that is the most current technology so that we can extend the life expectancy of that. So that's how we would do it.
we do have one comment card that came in after Dr. Coglanice had begun her presentation. And I did say that we would not take any more after that, but since we're doing really well and we do have time, I do want to take the time to make this comment that was given to us. It is from a University Park resident, and it says, I have seen signs that state don't close Talala and CSK must stay. Why are these signs posted, and what, if anything, do they have to do with Future Ready 2022? And so we're going to ask our leader to answer that question, Dr. Kara.
Well, I think as far as the district's concerned, we recognize there's a lot of history here in this district, and we're trying to be very respectful and embrace this history here at the same time, but also being accountable for how are we going to educate our children the best that we can to move them forward. The Future Ready vision is a vision that we believe will get our students moving forward, and unifying all of our students is a direction that we do believe that will get us where we want to go.
Are there any final thoughts, comments, questions that anyone would like to share? Okay.
Levels, brain centers into that area, because I did not know that we were running out of space in middle school. And for us, I think this was such a massive plan where since we do need to expand in the future, it was easier for students to have that work.
Absolutely, and actually we are looking at those as options, absolutely. Yeah, those are good.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please here.
Go ahead, Dr. Clark. Go ahead.
you.
Right ahead.
At this time, we do not have a grant writer, but we are always looking at options to save money. So from private donors, grants, whatever we can, we will look at all options to save money.
All right, anyone else? Any final thoughts or questions? All
As I
right.
said, we're going to be around here tonight, so feel free to stop and visit with us on your way out. And we so appreciate you coming out tonight. We appreciate your voice. Please pass along to your friends and neighbors that could not come. This is live streamed tonight. It will be on our website. And please encourage them to take the survey. We appreciate hearing back from you. Have a great night, everybody.
And please eat the cookies so I don't eat them all. Please.